support for South African refugees that are coming to the United States next week. Can you talk about what these refugees are fleeing and why this is a priority for the administration?
Well, the president has actually signed an executive order on that matter. My office can get it back to you, Michael. This group in South Africa has faced racial persecution. In fact, the government there has vowed to take away their farmland that they own. And so the president has talked significantly about this. As for further details on refugee claims and asylum claims, I would defer you to the State Department.
Deeply and morally wrong-headed and repulsive. These are the descendants of the people who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid. They're not directly responsible for it, but it was a system that actually moved black people off of the arable land. So they inherited the land that the black people had to give up. It was called forced removal, something called the Bantustan policy, where they moved black people out of the cities and farmlands into these remote areas of non-arable land. I mean, it was just one of the most worst processes ever. But what has happened in this strange, bizarre world we're living in is that the Afrikaners have become the darling of these right-wing, white supremacist movements around the world. Trump amazingly called it a genocide, one of the worst lies I've ever heard him say. There's just been a small handful of farmers that have been killed over the past 10 years. No land has actually been expropriated.
There is no white genocide. White people are hugely privileged, and that is our failure. I spoke to some matriculants from Hanover Park, I think about 10 days ago, and I actually got tearful when I said to them that I apologize on behalf of my generation that we haven't done more to dismantle the long tentacles of apartheid.
I only want white people here, because when we think about refugees who need immediate resettlement, expedited screenings, we usually think about people who are fleeing extreme violence, persecution, famine, war, in places like South Sudan, Myanmar, the Congo, not white Afrikaners. See that chartered plane the Trump administration is sending? It's not going to collect refugees that have been sitting in resettlement camps for years, fully vetted, waiting to come to the United States to escape violence. No, it's going to South Africa to collect white people who claim they're being discriminated against. Why would they be getting discriminated against? Probably because they spent generations instituting legalized forms of racial segregation and discrimination called apartheid, aka Stephen Miller's wet dream. See, while the rest of the world after World War II saw that maybe racial discrimination not such a hot idea and favored more policies of integration and away from colonization, Afrikaners doubled down on that shit and instituted apartheid. Although it ended over 30 years ago, the social and economic legacies of apartheid continue today. South Africa is the most unequal country in the entire world, according to the World Bank, with white South Africans earning over 12 times what black South Africans do. But don't worry, we're going to make sure that the white Afrikaners who instituted generations of discrimination and segregation against black people get everything they need to get started here in the United States in their new life.
Donald Trump is chartering a plane using U.S. taxpayer money to bring refugees from South Africa to America. Now let's think about this for just one moment. What is the same about all these South African refugees that we might notice? They're all white people. That's right. And so when we talk about deporting people, it appears that they're mostly non-white. But we can bring in South Africans who are white. And I just can't shake this feeling. I just can't shake this feeling that maybe, and I'm not saying it, I don't know, I'm not there, I'm not in the room when these conversations occur. It seems to me that it's possible that these guys in the White House are motivated by certain aspects of these people that they're bringing in and taking out. Because I'm not saying it's true.
When Donald Trump sends in white South Africans, he's not sending us their best, right? He's sending us their failures, he's sending us their crybabies, and some, I assume, are really good people.
Sending private planes to pick up 8,000 Caucasian South African refugees when we're kicking people out that are in the middle of their immigration proceedings here in the U.S. now. Literally having people show up for their final steps of their immigration process and having them arrested, detained, and deported. Doesn't make any sense to me unless please tell the bad guy right here how it makes you feel. Because this is not right. This is sick. And I don't want to be the perpetrator anymore.
To the 50 Afrikaners who fled to the US, calling themselves refugees, you are not refugees. You are just a case study of white flight dressed up as martyrdom. You're not escaping violence, you're escaping equality. South Africa didn't chase you away. You ran. Yes, South Africa is one of the most violent countries in the world. Yes, brutality exists, but let's be honest, violence affects all communities, not just white farmers, black, colored, Indian, and yes, white people are all targets of a national crime crisis. What we have is a breakdown in safety, not a white genocide. This is not ethnic cleansing, it's criminal collapse, and running to the US won't fix it. You are part of a 7% minority, but somehow still manages to control over 70% of the wealth. That is not persecution, that's privilege on a guilt trip. And let's be real, if we tried to relocate just half of the Afrikaans population, it would take decades, billions in logistics, and you'd still end up culturally homeless in a country that don't want your apartheid baggage. You're not brave, you're not victims. You're scared of a world where you don't get to be in charge, and that makes the rest of the Afrikaans community cringe, because you make us look weak. South Africa is broken, and it's our problem to solve. So if you don't have the spine to do so, stay gone.
To all of these South African Afrikaans refugees that are coming to America soon, I just want to let you know, as someone whose wife is Afrikaans, who's been to South Africa multiple times, you're going to have a bad time. There's no white genocide happening in South Africa. You have crime that's happening as a result of racism-fueled generational economic inequality. The same thing that's happening in America. We're just a couple decades ahead of you on the unchecked capitalism timeline. But I have good news for you. You don't have to worry about the cheap exploited labor rising up against you anymore, because now that you're in America, you'll get to be the cheap exploited labor. If you were middle class or upper middle class in South Africa and you come to America, you're poor now. Like, really poor. You're not going to have maids and gardeners and personal servants that you can pay $15 a day for. Now you get to be the cheap labor. But by all means, please come to America and experience the American capitalism that Elon Musk's been raving about to you. You'll probably love it. You know, what do I know? There's probably very little chance that you'll end up going back to South Africa in a year or two after realizing how overpriced and fucked up America is. I wouldn't even worry about that as a possibility. And if you think I'm being mean to these people because I think they're a bunch of racist, bigoted colonizers who wish they could go back to apartheid South Africa, it's just because I do think that. But to them, I say, welcome to the American dream. Please let me know when you've woken up from it.
So y'all want me to believe Trump is putting America first by allowing white Afrikaners to be refugees to come here to these United States of America and be provided housing, a cell phone, food, diapers, all that. Meanwhile, we have veterans homeless. We have American taxpayers struggling. And you want me to believe he's not racist either, because God knows he's deporting undocumented taxpayers, okay? He's deporting babies who are 2 years old and can't fend for themselves, so they gotta go with the family. They got deported, okay? Mind you, he's deporting people with visas who went through the legal process, but still getting rid of them. But we're gonna invite these white Afrikaners here to America, and we're gonna give you all the things you need. But he's not racist, and he's putting America first. That's the nation that I'm living in right now. That's the nonsense that you guys continue to speak, and the goalpost constantly moves. Y'all have no foundation of morals, of anything. You don't.
The racists are assembling like the Avengers. And folks can say that they resting, they sitting it out, this not our fight. But these are your resources that these white folks from South Africa are about to take. Resources that you can't even get access to. Mind you, they're calling these people who colonized one area of the world refugees. Was Poland not available? Is France closed? Folks can complain, cry, scream, and throw up about the election all they want, but it's May. What you finna do about it? Because the last thing I'm doing is expecting any other group of folks to put it on the line for us. They can't even get the protest part right. They're monetizing off of movement work with no actual movement.
I think there's some misunderstanding about the upper class. They're coming in with P1 refugee status, which means they have the same rights and the same benefits as any American walking around. And I might not even be surprised if the administration fast tracks their citizenship.
stuff, yeah, that's child's play over here.
The funniest thing about all this is I'm just asking why only 49? I thought it's a whole group that is going through, this genocide as they claim. Why only 49 people? Like, I thought it should be more. Like, they should be like running so hard to leave this genocide so black South Africans could have peace also. Make it make sense, guys.
FAFO season continue. They say when you make stupid decisions, you're going to pay for the consequences the hard way. So Afrikaners are back in America, and they're going to enjoy benefits that you as American citizen you are currently being denied. They are going to be given free Medicare, they're going to be given free housing, they're going to be given most of the things they're going to enjoy that you as American citizens are supposed to be given. Right now you are being denied. And these are Afrikaners. They come from South Africa. They are South African citizens, but they call themselves refugees as they move to America. Is it right? Is it wrong? Well, the verdict is out there. All I can tell you is there genocide in South Africa? No. And is it true that people are currently facing criminals activities in South Africa? Yes. Is it true most of the blacks in South Africa are poor? Yes. And all that thanks to apartheid. Is it true Afrikaners are the ones who introduced apartheid in South Africa? Yes. For those who don't know what apartheid is, it's basically a system where they judge you based on your race, where you're going to study, where you're going to live, who you're going to associate with, who you're going to marry, whether you're going to benefit in the country or not. All that, it all depends on the skin color. That is apartheid in white and black. And for a long time, South Africa had that system, and it was introduced by Afrikaners themselves. So what happens when the late President Nelson Mandela came into power? He abolished apartheid in South Africa and introduced this free system that people literally are enjoying currently in South Africa. But unfortunately, what he was unable to do was basically introducing systems where they are going to teach majority of the black South Africans to get education, where they're going to introduce system where majority of the blacks are going to get jobs, where they're going to introduce systems where blacks are going to benefit what the white Afrikaners were benefiting in South Africa. So what has happened? Fast forward to 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, after independence in South Africa, South Africa is experiencing the highest number of criminality in South Africa. Why? Because majority of the blacks, that is the black South Africans, majority of them don't have any jobs. Kids are growing up, becoming adults, they have family to take care of, but they don't have any jobs. They don't have education to get those jobs. So what's happening? They turn into crimes, and these crimes is what is affecting the whole of South Africa, regardless of race. Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Indian, whether you are Asian, it doesn't matter. As long as there's crime in the society, it's affecting you as an individual or as a community. Why? Because a huge number of South Africans don't have jobs, and that is the reality that South Africa as a government is trying to address currently. They're trying to introduce skills where blue collar skills, of course white collar skills, so people can learn, and of course once they learn, then they can get jobs or they can become self-employed. And as a result, now we are seeing Afrikaners now claiming, not all Afrikaners, some Afrikaners claiming that, genocide is happening in South Africa. That's why they're insisting they want to move to America. But now, unfortunately, majority of South Africans, especially Afrikaners, have come online and said, you know what, there is no genocide that's happening in South Africa. All we're experiencing is criminality activity, and which is affecting the whole community in South Africa. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what your thoughts are, okay? And drop your comments, and please don't forget to subscribe.